Okay, 5:45. There's the music.
It is.
It's time for another Christmas confession. Thank you very much indeed for all the fabulous tales which have been...
Oh, the drinks trolley's here.
Christmas drinks trolley, first of all. What have you selected for us, Sister Susie?
Well, I'm starting the week quite controversially, and I'm going to go for an eggnog.
Ugh.
All right, you can keep that one.
Very much.
Okay.
Super tasty.
Eggnog, thanks very much. Today's confession and receiver of another smart speaker is Ruth, or Ruthie. Simon and the Great Forgivers. My story goes way back to the 1970s when I was in high school and living in South Africa. So,
okay.
Accents, here we come.
Here it comes, everyone. Looking forward to this.
My family consisted of myself and my sister, both of us at school, a baby sister, a very creative, eccentric mother, and a father who was the life of the party and loved a good practical joke. He was also a redhead and an only child, and a quintessential example of both a red-headed temper and a spoilt brat only child. He owned a plastic manufacturing business and loved being on the factory floor. He would get home covered in the trappings of the job, and his evening bath was his sanctuary, and how he loved it. Once he climbed the stairs to head into the bathroom for his evening routine, we'd not see him for hours. Inevitably, he would fall asleep in the tub, and Mum did not like this one bit. The magnitude of her annoyance would be directly relative to how ruined the dinner would be, whilst we waited for Dad to alight from the bath so we could all eat together. The evening ritual was repetitive. No sooner had Dad climbed the stairs to go to the bath, we would hear the snores emanating from the upper rooms. The particular evening around which my story is based is, of course, at Christmas time. Mistletoe and wine.
Christmas time.
Singing Christian
rhymes. Yeah.
Dad had got home from work, poured himself a whiskey, and we chatted in the kitchen, as we customarily did. Then he headed up the stairs to have his bath. As the sound of snoring drifted down the stairs, I remember seeing Mum looking significantly more aggravated than usual. And then a wicked grin crept upon my 15-year-old face. Mum's creativity included sweet making. She was quite a master. She made sweets like humbugs and taffy and Christmas candy canes from molten boiled sugar, coloured and poured into greased marble slabs. She had a sweet-making cupboard with bags of sugar and trays of little bottles of food colouring in every colour available. Being Christmas, there was an abundance of red and green. I pulled a tray of green food colouring out of the cupboard and headed up the stairs. Mum caught on quick and followed, wearing a matching wicked grin. We quickly and quietly poured, 24 bottles, maybe 36 bottles of green colouring into Dad's soapy bath.
Okay.
He was lying in a full deep bath
of soaps and
soapy
soaps and suds everywhere, everyone.
Completely submerged, save for the tips of his bent fingers, which were clasped on his chest, his knuckles peeping out of the green water, and his chin down dipped into the water. We tiptoed out of the bathroom, back down to the kitchen where Mum, completely delighted, did not even flinch when the snores continued to rumble. It was a good half hour later that the fun began.
Oh, Struth! What? No, come on, no. You can't have Struth.
I mean, Edith, what the? Come on!
Yeah, come on, indeed. Yeah.
This went on for quite a while before he appeared at the kitchen door. He was wearing shorty pyjamas. This is South Africa, remember? It's summer at Christmas time. He was green as a little Irish leprechaun from neck to toe, save for his face, which had a green chin, and the tips of his knuckles. And he was fuming. For a man who usually sported a fantastic sense of humour and loved a good joke, he was not holding up well. The velocity of his ranting and swearing was directly relative to our amusement and giggles. I got no blame at all because I was a favourite child. At this stage, we had one very green, very grumpy redhead man, one victorious wife, and 2 teenage girls who were dead keen to get some mileage out of this.
Oh, yeah.
Dad wore a safari suit to work. Now, South Africa is hot, what can I say? He never wore long trousers, ever, unless he was going to a funeral. But for the next 4 days, the poor man was sporting long trousers and a long-sleeved shirt to cover up his greenness in the middle of December in South Africa, where temperatures were averaging high 30s. There was nothing he could do about his little green chin or the little green hands poking out of his sleeves. Also nothing he could do about the three of us singing, "It's good to touch the green, green grass of home, Dad.
Good.
God didn't make the little green apples, and it don't rain in Indianapolis in the summertime." He was the greenest person at Christmas I've ever seen. Mum and Dad have both since passed away many years ago, so this is a posthumous confession to ask forgiveness, not from my father, who deserved every bit of ragging that he got, but from my mother, who stoically shouldered the blame and never ratted on me once. I kept my spot as Daddy's favourite daughter. So to you, Simon, Matt, Nigel and Susie, please look kindly on my request and do have yourselves a very Merry Christmas and some very lovely holidays as well. Let me see where we're going to go. Let's go to Sister Susie first of all. I mean, it was festive in as much as it happened at Christmas time, and the shorts and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, happened at Christmas time. Also, he was green, so, he looked like the Grinch as well.
Oh,
the Grinch
yes,
that stole Christmas. So, Ruthie, I can't imagine how long that must have taken to scrub off. And it was very, very funny. So I think I'm going to forgive you. It's Christmas after all.
3 dozen bottles of green colouring, and I suspect like a couple would have been fine.
Yes.
36 bottles.
Just a few drops.
Brother from another country.
Well, yes, and I'm sure, food colouring, it comes off, doesn't it? That's what food colouring does. It dissolves pretty easily. So I don't think there would have been any long-term. Yeah, probably.
But you don't know.
No. But long-term damage, I'm not sure there would have been any. I feel that we were denied a longer South African accent in that confession
Yes, I think you
somehow. Literally, all we got was 2 words, and that was it. We should have got a little bit more of the green dye.
Okay, well, it basically says most of it is unbroadcastable.
Oh, right.
It
Swear
goes,
words.
oh, man, Edith, what the blazes,
Okay.
and so on.
Right. Didn't quite get the Johannesburg inflection in that one, did we? But I am going to forgive, and that is just because the world is clearly split into those people who have baths and those who have showers. And as I've said before, I've never trusted anyone who has a bath and sits in their own filth. So for that reason, I'm going to forgive.
Filth. 61054 61054 on the text for the people's verdict. Do you forgive Ruthie or not? Start your text with Simon, please. 61054. First word is deal with the confession, which came from Ruthie, and a tale of adding about 30 bottles of green food dye into a sleeping father's soapy bathtub. He turned green, he went crazy, but not in a South African accent.
No.
People's verdict, here it is.
So everyone's forgiving. John in Nottingham says, I agree with Susie. He looked like the Grinch, so perfect for Christmas. Linda in Cheshire, forgiven. That was hilarious. So was the South African accent, which sounded a wee bit Aussie.
It did.
Drix, forgiven. Us Saffers have a good sense of humour. Merry Christmas. And finally, Gemma in Essex says, forgiven. I totally agree with Matt on this one. I've never understood baths.
Yes, a little bit of editorial going in there. Okay, so we need your confessions. Please send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Well, we're going to try and get through a confession.
Here we go, everyone.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of coughing and spluttering. All you'll get is more of albinonis adagio.
No bad thing.
Yeah.
Bad thing. So let's see how we do with this. Confession which comes from Carol. Thank you. Festive Carol. Simon and the gang. This is not my confession, although I did play a part, albeit in complete innocence. It is on behalf of my very much loved dad and equally loved uncle, sadly no longer with us. When I was a child, Christmas time was very much a family time with grandparents, aunts and uncles, and various cousins gathering together. Festive food and drink aplenty, bowls of peanuts, crisps, and Quality Street whenever you wanted, not just the boring every now and again rule, which no one likes. That is true. That is one of the
Very
best
true.
things. Oh, look, a bowl of sweets.
Yeah.
Yes.
All the
I'll help
time.
myself all
For
the time.
breakfast. Thank you. Board games, singing, and group TV watching were the order of the day.
Yes.
As I remember the TV specials we look forward to enormously, each one of the shows guaranteed to be better than Mrs. Brown's Boys. Even the Christmas Last of the Summer Wine and Crossroads were better.
Yes. Okay.
Was there a festive Crossroads? I don't remember.
No, I don't remember that. No.
No? Anyway. I'm getting distracted.
Yes.
My dad and uncle used to take it in turns every year to dress up as Santa. This is obviously the pretend version.
Of course,
as opposed
of
to
course.
the real thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
And give out the presents to me and my brother and cousins. But every year my granddad was desperate to do it. He really didn't see why the Yuletide Santa rota did not include him. The answer was, of course, that he would give the game away immediately. He wouldn't try to disguise his voice. He'd just say, "Oh, hello, son." And maybe a small beer would be welcome. And then inevitably he'd say, "I'll just use the loo if I may." You get the idea. It wouldn't have been a mystery Santa at all.
No.
So, the consequence of all this is that he was never allowed to be Santa until 1 year, after much non-stop nagging, trolling in fact, if we thought of the phrase. My dad and uncle finally relented and they let Grandad be Santa. On the day he excitedly got changed, secretly of course, slipped out of the house so that he could turn up, knock on the front door as a surprise. The chimney at our place wasn't up to much, and it had been declared unsafe, so the front door it was.
Yeah.
We were all so pleased to see him, although I remember he had gone a bit overboard with my mum's rouge. He was a very jolly Santa.
Rosy cheek.
Maybe he hadn't checked the mirror, so he looked very rosy-cheeked indeed. He chortled and ho-ho-hoed his way around the house, duly handed out the presents, used the loo, inevitably.
Obviously, that's fine. Would you mind? Just
pop in.
Rudolph. Yeah.
And I had a wonderful time with his grandchildren. When it was time for Santa to leave, all the children and my dad and my uncle gathered at the front door to wave him goodbye. We followed him down the path and we waved. Santa waved back. He trotted off down the road. Now you should know, for this next bit, we live on a very long, very straight road with good visibility for all. Off Santa set down the road. Bye then, children, he called. Bye, Santa, we called. However, every time he turned round to come back, encouraged by my dad and uncle, we remained standing at the end of the path,
Yes.
waving and shouting,
Of course.
"Bye then, Santa." Having walked some distance, he ducked behind a couple of parked cars, clearly thinking we'd all go indoors. But as soon as he popped his head up, there we all were, waving. "So long, Santa. See you next year." So off he had to trudge. Further and further he went. When he had become a little dot in the distance, maybe 3/4 of a mile,
Wow.
my dad and uncle relented and brought the children inside. Grandad eventually came back, freezing cold and very grumpy. Unsurprisingly, he never asked to play Santa again.
No.
The image of Santa disappearing into the distance has stayed with me all these years, and I can still hear my dad and uncle laughing as he disappeared up the road. At the time, I had no idea what had happened, but it's a story that they both love to tell. I, for one, totally forgive them and hope you and your listeners will too as well. Merry Christmas to you all. Okay, that's very nice. Thank you, Carol. Very nice story. I have this image also of a tiny little Santa at the end of the road, desperate to turn around because he's getting cold.
Yeah.
Sister Susie from the pub, although in the studio today.
Carol, I feel like, he probably needed another wee by the time he got all the way down the road, didn't he? So
That's what he was doing, duck behind the car.
Behind the cars, yeah. So I do feel a bit sorry for Grandad Santa. However, I just love the idea of you just standing there being like, "No, bye, Santa."
Such a
bye.
simple idea.
And just stood there, kept on going, and very, very funny. Well done, Dad and Uncle, for thinking of that one. And I'm going to forgive you because I thought it was brilliant.
Forgiveness has come from Sister Susie, which kind of leaves you in a difficult position.
Well, it does and it doesn't, because I mean, really, I don't think we've ever had a confession that has focused quite so fiercely on Santa's toilet habits. That's got to be a first. I like that a lot. I love that story, and I like the fact that he clearly hadn't thought it through. That he was going to have to keep on going down the road, ducking under cars. Fabulous stuff. Definitely forgiven. Well done. What a great story.
Okay, so the people's verdict, please. Do you forgive Carol / Carol's dad and Carol's uncle? On the text, please, 61054. You start your message with Simon. The people's verdict in the next hour, as is a rather fine Tunes Day selection as chosen by you. People's verdict, first of all, though, 61054. First word is... today's confession came from Carol. Festive confession of how their granddad, who really wanted to play Santa, hadn't actually beckoned for the long walk into the horizon, goaded by beloved uncle and father. Anyway, it was a very fine story from Carol. People's verdict, here it comes.
Yes, so Nick in Wokingham says, forgiven, as is everyone else. Everyone's forgiving. They're loving this story. He says, it reminds me of when my granddad was Santa. My mum used to tell me how I said, Mum, why has Santa got granddad's slippers on? Pauline in Whitley Bay says, forgiven. I only heard the last bit, but it was so funny. I'll have to try and hear the bit about his toilet habits. And finally, forgiven. That was an amazing confession. I can't fault Susie for forgiving him. That was hilarious. I forgive him too, and I look forward to doing that to my grandkids. Have an amazing Christmas. And that's from Mark the Drain Man from Friday, who you might remember was the one who told us not to pour milk down our drains.
That's right, I do remember that.
Very good.
Excellent.
Well done, Mark.
Thank you very much. If you have a confession and you fancy exchanging it for a smart speaker, then get in touch. confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. And live to the pub where Sister Susie is in charge as ever. What festive drink do you have for us today?
Well, I thought today, why not have a glass of port? Because it's very, very tasty. I like a ruby port, but you can have a tawny port as well. But yeah, glass of port.
Okay, I'm not really an expert there, so I shall take your advice.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Delicious.
much. Okay, a tawny port
Nice
or something
after
like that.
After dinner tawny port.
I should bear that in mind. Today's festive confession comes from Jacob. Jacob, thank you very much. Get the smart speaker. Hi, Simon. Hi, Jacob. It was lovely in the centre of Birmingham as it was getting near Christmas one year. I was looking for a gift for Persephone, my wife. And as many people know, buying for your loved one does present difficulties. I've heard tell, for example, that your Matt there has purchased a USB cable for his other half one year.
Yeah. I mean, there were other stuff, I should point out.
I'm sure there was much good cheer in the Williams house that year.
Yes.
Obviously, a USB cable is a very useful thing and shiny and bendy and sleek in its own way.
Yeah.
But I knew that my wife would not be so practical as Matt's wife.
No.
A bolder statement was needed. And so in a jeweller's in New Street, Birmingham, I noticed a lovely pair of diamond earrings. 18-carat white gold diamond cluster stud earrings, to be precise. Not too gaudy or tasteless, obviously. Not too cheap either.
Oh.
Anyway, they were sparkly and they were gorgeous, just like my wife. Perfect, I thought, so I went and I bought them. The assistant complimented me on my taste. I'm sure they did.
Yes.
Put them in a little box, then wrapped them in a small sheet of intricately patterned paper, and then finally a little red bow. Almost like Rowan Atkinson in Love Actually.
Oh, yes.
Certainly heading in that direction. At the end of it all, however, the assistant handed me a very neat, very special little box. When I got home, the Christmas tree was already up, so I carefully slipped the box a little way back up the tree, thinking that on Christmas Day, I'll say something like, I say, well, fancy that, lordy, lordy, but hey. What? Is there one extra present here on the tree?
Oh, could there be?
And a surprise for Persephone. There would be such scenes. Anyway, unfortunately, my wife spotted it a day or two later, and the conversation went something like this. What's that little box on the tree then? Oh, I say, that little box has been part of our decorations for years, my dear, and comes down in the decorations box every year. No, it doesn't, she says. I know our decorations. I haven't seen that before. Oh, well, I say, you're looking lovely today, dear. And I tried to distract her. Well, had Persephone left it at that, I might have survived for the few days that were left. But oh no. Every day I got this inquest. What's that present on the tree? What's that box then? So, back at work in Birmingham, I asked my workmate, who was going out into town, do a bit of shopping, for a set of those cheap and tasteless festive earrings that ladies wear at this time of year.
Oh, really? I'm not sure they do.
You know, the ones with reindeer and Father Christmas lying at the base of them.
Christmas tree.
They definitely do. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, he bought them, and when he came back, I said, lovely. Persephone will hate them. So in my lunch break, I went back to the same jewellers and I asked them kindly if they would wrap these tasteless, gaudy earrings in exactly the same way as the diamond ones, and I explained my story. They understood my wizard wheeze and did not charge me at all. So getting home that evening, when Persephone was out of the room, I carefully swapped them over. I then grilled my son and daughter that on Christmas Day, when she opened that present, to go into raptures and say, Ma, What a lovely thing that is, that you can wear them at Christmas every year. Such joy it will bring, knowing that she hates absolutely anything like these particular earrings. Christmas Day, her face was a picture, and we all had a bit of fun at her expense. Yes, that's right. Anyway, so you can wear them every year.
Yes.
Anyway, so she opens them, and Christmas Day, her face was a picture as she opens these gaudy, tasteless earrings, and we all had some fun at her expense. All I needed now was to cleverly reveal my real present, and then the fabulous diamonds would be hers.
Yes.
But my confession is this. The diamond earrings, the very expensive diamond earrings, that would be such a perfect present. The diamond earrings, that would be the best gift ever, had actually been lost.
Oh, no.
I put them in a safe place, but I couldn't remember where the safe place was. I ransacked the house, emptying drawers and cupboards. I moved furniture, turned everything upside down. I went through my pockets 1,000,000 times, but there was nothing. Well, there was lots of tap, but there were no diamond earrings. I was appalled because now it looked as though my big gift this Christmas were the kind of earrings you might get in a cracker. They'll be fun for 5 minutes in a nice baubles kind of way, but that was it. She took it stoically, but I could tell by her demeanour and general countenance that she was bitterly disappointed and angry. I overcompensated, I think, by being super jolly and life and soul of the party, but this just seemed to irritate everyone. Yes, I can imagine that it would.
Yeah.
The diamonds stayed lost for many years, and then, just recently, I put on an old jacket and found them in an inside pocket.
Oh.
I did a big reveal, of course, and explained the story, but this was never really accepted as a present, and so I would like to say sorry, and I would love to see my darling wife Persephone wearing the earrings because they are truly beautiful. And as we celebrate our golden wedding next year, it would be nice to see her new earrings, her 18-carat white gold diamond cluster stud earrings, very expensive, on her. Certainly in time for next year. Let's just say the moral of the story is never try and spoil a surprise, and I think we've all learned that you don't play tricks on your wife at Christmas, says Jacob. Married to Persephone. What do you say, Sister Susie from the pub? I can hear the pub getting quite rowdy at the moment.
It's getting quite rowdy downstairs. I think, Jacob, that the problem we made was putting it on the tree for everyone to see way before Christmas, because
Ludicrous.
I'd be that person going, what's that? What's that? What's in there? What's in there? What is it? And you just were never going to win at that point. But it's Christmas. I forgive you. I like that they were found. And I also like the little dig at Matt and his cable buying Christmas presents.
Such a Christmas
for that
gift.
reason alone, forgiven.
You shouldn't have. You really shouldn't have.
You really shouldn't have.
Brother from
really
another.
shouldn't.
I mean, aren't we always told that it's the thought that counts? And the thought was clearly there. He'd bought the earrings. He'd got them. He just unfortunately had left them in his pocket. And then
he didn't know where he left them.
He didn't know, did he? I mean, we can all make mistakes. But he did have the earrings at the end of the day. So she ended up with 2 earrings and still wasn't thankful.
4
and
earrings.
was constantly going on about the box on the tree. But golden wedding, so, everything worked out well in the end. But just imagine, Jacob, if you'd actually managed to present her with a gift like a USB cable on that day, she would have had a present then. Who's laughing now, Jacob? Oh,
Sunshine.
So forgiven.
Okay, fair enough. Well argued. People's verdict, please. Do you forgive Jacob on the text 61054? Thank you. 12 minutes past 6. Tonight's confession came from Jacob, married to Persephone, but it's Persephone here, so that's what I'm going to stick with.
Okay.
And a tale of lost diamond earrings, which were swapped for some cheap, gaudy ones, but only recently recovered. But anyway, it was a surprise that went terribly. Jacob, thank you very much. You get the smart speaker, but do you get the forgiveness? Here we go.
Well, Tommy in Bognor Regis says forgiven. She received the lovely earrings in the end, so no harm. And Maria says not forgiven, just for the blatant dissing of festive earrings. I've made my own Christmassy earrings, but mine are made from swanky Swarovski crystals.
Oh, I say.
Helen from Fleet says forgiven. Why did Persephone feel the need to keep questioning what was in the box? It's Christmas. There's presents around. It's what happens at this time of year.
That's true,
every
actually.
year.
That's
You know
true.
the rules. Leave them alone until Christmas Day.
Just because you're called Persephone doesn't mean you can change your name to Persephone at any time you like.
No, you can't.
Also, doesn't mean you can point at a present and say, what's that then?
Yes, exactly.
Anyway, thank you very much indeed for that. So your confession would be welcome. You send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. To end Christmas Eve. Let's just check in with Sister Susie, still producing the show from the saloon bar.
Yes, working hard.
Very good. And just in time, the David Jacobs Memorial
Drinks
Trolley is there. What are you
Yes.
selecting for us?
Well, seeing as it's the last drinks trolley of the year, I thought we'd fast forward to New Year's Eve, and how about a nice sparkly fizz? I particularly like a Chapel Down rosé
Oh,
or
very
a Night
nice.
Timber.
Oh, very nice.
English sparkling. So yeah, go with the English sparkling. Very, very tasty.
Very good. Thank you very much for all your hard work on the drinks trolley.
Yes.
Tonight's confession, final festive confession, comes from Mrs. Kringle. And it has 2 points of view. So it's written from the point of view of Mrs. Kringle. It then jumps to Mr. Kringle and then back to Mrs. Kringle.
Wow, I've never tried this before.
So it's quite a thing. Father Simon and the Elves of Forgiveness. Mrs. Kringle going first.
Okay.
My husband, let's call him Chris Kringle, enjoys being Father Christmas's representative at local schools and churches. He's always in great demand because he takes time and effort in his appearance, never runs short of his ho-ho-hoing, always stays in character, listens to the children and takes care not to disappoint them or reveal his identity as just another tired dad, so diminishing their trust in the real Father Christmas.
Obviously.
Anyway,
Of course.
on the morning of the St. Custard's Church Fair,
Oh, them again.
having
Yes.
seen him safely ensconced in the grotto in the church hall, I went to walk our dog on the nearby nature reserve. Our lovely Rhodesian Ridgeback called Mimi was full of energy. Like many dogs, loved to chase and retrieve a tennis ball, in particularly the squeaky kind. I had all the gear, house key, lead, treats, warm gloves, poo bags, the squeaky ball, and of course I had my mobile phone, all contained in my pockets and a small bum bag. We went out in the crisp December air. It was magical, Father Simon. Mimi and I had a very long walk, probably about 2 hours. It wasn't until I returned home that I realized the difficulty I had created for myself and Mr. Kringle. In those days, when a decree went out from Caesar Augustus,
Yes, it did,
in
didn't
those
it?
days, my phone was a Nokia 2600 Classic. Small rectangular device, not much bigger than a palm of your hand, a square screen at the top, a number keypad at the bottom, and in the middle, a toggle button that could be pressed upish, downish, leftish, and rightish
yeah.
to navigate the menus, or straight down to confirm the user's selection. I checked my phone for messages and saw that I had sent 78 text messages to Mr. Kringle. As I walked, the tennis ball in the bum bag had pressed against the toggle button
what?
on the mobile.
Oh,
Menu, select text, select recipient, select Chris Kringle, select send, send. Menu, select text, select recipient, select Chris Kringle, select send, send. Menu, select text, select recipient, select Chris Kringle, Chris Kringle.
Kringle. Yeah,
Kringle.
yeah. Select send. Yeah.
It's the Chapel Down.
Yes. Yeah.
Select send, send.
Send. Yeah.
Every few minutes, a blank message was sent to Mr. Kringle's phone. I hadn't heard any bleeping because I was wearing a woolly hat and had a favourite film podcast playing in my
I
earphones.
wonder what that could be.
Yes, now known as Corbett and Mayo's Take. Apparently, I'm just
Yes,
saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
It took me a long time to delete 78 texts.
Wowza.
One by tedious one. I didn't want to delete our whole conversation. That went back years, obviously. When Mr. Kringle returned home, I heard the other side of the story and the difficulties it had caused. And here is the other side of the story.
Okay.
Now, Chris Kringle
Yeah.
speaks. I think you should know. I take my duties seriously. I had taken my mobile phone out and secreted it behind the grotto with my civilian clothes, placed where the superfluous chairs, tables and so on were hidden by curtains across the hall. As usual, the girl guides had done a magnificent job decorating the grotto, and Father Christmas and the elves, the guides, settled down for a busy Visit Father Christmas session. The church hall began to fill. The elves enthusiastically rang their bell to entice the visitors away from the white elephant stall, the teddy tombola, the wine raffle, and so on. Come and see Santa went out the cry. The parents' guardians paid a small fee. The children lined up and were ushered into the grotto in their family groups. All was going well. I was on good form, and every child was filled with the rosy hopes of Christmas. And then the trouble started. Went the phone. Oh dear, I'd forgotten to turn it to silent. I couldn't reach it because the phone was in my shoe behind a curtain under a table. Well, that's all right, I thought. I ad-libbed. Pay no attention, young Noah. It's just the elves mucking about, ho-ho.
Oh, oh.
Ah, don't worry, Penelope. Rudolph is just reminding me that the sleigh is full of toys. Ho, ho, ho. What's that, Tarquin? That's Mother Christmas. I expect she wants to know what I would like for tea. Hot chocolate and cookies, of course, with a mince pie for afters. Ho, ho, ho. Elvira, don't go behind the curtain, dear. Your mummy is calling Elvira. Ho, ho, ho. 78 times Mrs. Kringle messaged me in all. 78. Just as I had the children fully believing in the magic of Christmas, they were cruelly brought back to modern life, and I had come up with some story. I am often a wreck after the stints in the grotto, but that year she put me through the ringer, if you see what I'm saying. Besides the inevitable cold I catch from being close to that many snotty children, besides the nylon rash from the uniform and the elastic marks on my face, I had the stress of changing my tried and tested routine to cover for Mrs. Kringle picking me 78 times. We now go back to Mrs. Kringle.
Oh, right, okay.
Of course, we then had an argument. After I apologised when getting weary of his moaning, I asked him why he didn't just simply break character, walk to his phone. Because I said, what if I had really needed help? When I'm in the grotto, I can't break character, he replied. Christmas is more important than real life. And it was then, Father Simon, I began to wonder if he really was the magical man in the red suit after all. Wow. How about that? An astonishing tale.
Yeah.
A Father Christmas tale, a Mrs. Christmas tale, all involving modern technology. What a story it was. Sister Susie, live from the slough.
Oh, Mrs. Kringle, I just love that one. And I just think, I don't understand why you'd take the ball and not actually use it with the dog and just keep it in your pocket. But, I'm not going to ask too many questions. It's Christmas. I'm going to forgive you. Of course I am.
Excellent. Let's just check in with Brother Matthew here.
What a Christmas miracle that was. I think we can all agree. I love the fact that Chris Kringle couldn't break character because he's like De Niro when he's in that grotto, isn't he?
Christmas is more important than real life.
No, you're absolutely right. And he was painting pictures, wasn't he? And enhancing the experience for the little Tarquins and Elviras and the rest of them. So, and isn't that the magic of Christmas? I think it is the spirit of Christmas, isn't it? So for that reason, I'm going to forgive.
Okay, it's the people's verdict, please. Do you forgive Mrs. Chris Kringle and Mrs. Kringle? On the text, please, 61054. First word is Simon. The people's verdict is in. Here it comes.
So forgiven, says Dave and Jack the dog. It's Christmas, and hats off to Mr. Kringle for staying in character. Felicity says not forgiven. Mrs. Kringle should have been more on the ball. Oh, wait. The ball was still in her pocket. And Caitlin in Milton says, forgiven. He should have had his phone on silent and in his sack.
That's a little bit harsh, don't you think?
I think it's more to the point.
Now, it may well be that you have a confession to send us. Maybe over the new year, things happen, and you think, I know, the best way of getting that off my chest is to write into confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. If we use yours, you get a smart speaker.